What's up, everybody? It's the Power Rankings Podcast, aka the Power Rankings Show. I'm your host, Elliot Harrison, and pleased to be joined by the pretty at Marcus_Mosher. How are you, sir?
I'm a little shaken up right now, Elliot. First of all, no pause in the name, and then we start the show with you telling me that you don't like olives. What's going on? I'm a little concerned about you.
Olives are disgusting. First of all, green olives are worse.
Oh,
they're the worst.
That's a take right there.
The standard martini. I mean, I can do an apple teeny all day. Okay, I can drink you under the table on apple teenies, but.
What's wrong with the green olive? You get the little bit of saltiness to it. It's perfect with like some cheese and crackers.
I don't know. Just let me fix my camera shot and quit arguing with me over nonsensical things like olives tasting good. Black olives overpower everything that they're on.
Don't disagree there. I'm good with you there. Black olives are a little too much. Green olives, yes.
Look, if you have something that you like the taste, that's fine. That's one thing. But if it's going to overpower everything like ginger does, for example, you better like it. You know, wasabi overpowers everything. You better like wasabi. Black olives are like wasabi. They just overpower everything in your mouth.
All right, I got another really off-topic food question.
Right,
I have to ask you. So, my wife and I went out to dinner on Friday, and they bring you your salad, right? Your just little side salad,
and
this place that we went to, pepperoni on their salad. Is this something that people do in California or Texas? Is they put pepperoni on their salad?
No.
Okay.
No, they would.
That's what I thought.
They'd put some kind of soy pepperoni on their salad in California. Is actually what they would do.
Tofu.
Yeah. You can't even see my black and white picture. I was trying to show. See that cool picture right there?
We are.
Do you know what that is?
Rails today. No.
That's a picture from a game. Green Bay, Chicago Cardinals, 1943. That's what that is right there. Isn't that cool? So you didn't know that. Look at that. Listen, man, I'm trying to help you be in a good mood because I'm going to have to talk about something. I'm going to have to be curmudgeon-y Carl before we get into. So what we're doing today is Marcus has worked behind my back with our producer, Courtney, in which he studied on the best acquisition by every team this offseason, which is really cool. I don't know what they are. I'm just going to react organically to what he put together. So this ought to be kind of interesting for me. Hopefully it's interesting for you and not just for me. But there's also some topical things. I'll do a quick rundown here. First, it was reported that Tom Brady pushed Bruce Arians out, but that was all rampant speculation. Now people are coming out and saying it's normal for a coach and quarterback that's a veteran to wear on each other's nerves, and it's not true. And Bruce Arians called it BS. Marcus, do you really care about this story?
Not at all.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. Yeah. So a couple other news items. John McClain, long time writer for the Houston Chronicle, retired. He did his first story for them in 1976. I worked with John McClain on the Centennial panel at the Hall of Fame. He's a really great guy. And he started covering the Oilers in the late 70s, all the way through the move to Tennessee. When they made the Super Bowl as the Tennessee Titans, and then Houston was awarded a franchise and started playing in 2002. John's been there for all of it and has amazing stories. And it's a big loss. There aren't a lot of these guys left that have been covering a team for 40, 50 years, Marcus.
No, and man, he was just so good at his job too. Like whatever he said was fact. Like you didn't have to worry whether his sources were right or anything like that, or whether he was making something up for clicks. John was had a perfect batting average, right? I mean, he just was so good at his job. So we're going to miss him in the football community because he was awesome.
I think I read the story in Peter King's column, but I can't remember. I apologize if I'm off on this, but that John McClain was so convinced that Bob McNair was going to hire Butch Davis as the head coach, former Cowboys defensive coordinator, Butch Davis, former Browns coach, Butch Davis, North Carolina, I think also. Anyway, assistant with Jimmy Johnson at Miami. Anyway, Butch Davis in 2006. And he was so convinced that was what was gonna happen, that he went to Bob McNair's house and he saw that there were like he knew the room in the house that he thought Bob McNair would do it in the study if he was going to have Butch Davis over and interview him.
Yeah.
So he narrowed it down to when he thought this was going to happen, and there were gardeners out front gardening in the front yard of Bob McNair's house. So John McClane went and grabbed a rake and acted like he was doing yard work, and he kept doing it right in front of the window trying to see. And apparently when Bob McNair found that out, he thought that was incredibly funny, and was impressed with the journalistic, what do you want to call that? Hustle, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So I thought that was a good story. Last thing,
he was good.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I probably should have gone with that before we led into our list and said, I'm going to do a curmudgeon Carl, Debbie Downer. Marcus, you don't have to say anything.
Okay.
I've got to respond to this Daniel Snyder story that apparently Daniel Snyder, it was reported to a committee that Daniel Snyder may have basically cut off the other owners to visiting team profits. So I'm not going to tell you the complex version. It basically goes like this. All the owners revenue share. If you're the visiting team, so you're, Philadelphia, and you play at Washington, hopefully the stands don't come down. Sorry, that was a Jalen Hurts football joke. So you're Philadelphia, you're playing at Washington, and you get 40% of those gate receipts as the Philadelphia Eagles, but they share all of it, all 32 teams. That the Washington Commanders do not get to keep all 100% of their gate receipts. Well, if Washington underreports that, then that's less share for all the other owners. Okay, so what more does the NFL need at this point? I mean, look, I get it. I don't like it. Roger Goodell is not going to expose one of the owners to something that's going to damage them. I get it, because he's ultimately the minion of the owners. Okay. I mean, that's just the way to put it. His job is kind of like the HR department of a company, is to protect the company. However, if the other owners are hacked off, Marcus, if they know they're being shorted by another owner, they're the boss.
Yep.
They'll tell Roger Goodell, hey, all right, he's cutting us off of money that belongs to us. Get rid of him. It makes me feel like more and more that they are loath to do anything to Daniel Snyder for fear of what might come out. Kind of like the loose cannon type thing. That's my take on this. Why else would you be afraid? What are you afraid of? That more things are going to come out about other owners? That's my guess. Do you have any kind of guess on this, or you just want to move on? I know.
I'm really excited to talk about the Chiefs' big acquisition and free agency. Really like
that's all right. That's what you don't want to. I'll be the bad guy.
It sounds like Daniel Snyder hasn't been a part of the day-to-day operations for Washington for a year now. It sounds like they've been trying to pave the way to get rid of him. I think this is probably the straw that broke the camel's back, right? This is going to be the thing that ultimately does him in, is my guess.
Well, here's the problem real quick, and then we'll get done with this. I already told you, I wonder if there's a fear of what would come out if Daniel Snyder was basically forcibly removed, essentially. And by the way, that comes with its own, you can't really forcibly, that's a league matter that's obviously would be handled internally with the other owners. But
they can force them to sell a team though, right?
They can force them to sell the team, but it's not like, okay, I'll give up the team. See you later. Like you have to, it takes a while for a team to sell. There's a whole process, right? I'm just trying to oversimplify this, but the other side of this is if you get rid of an owner because of this, but not because of what came out last year, how bad does that make you look? Like, harassing all of our employees wasn't nearly bad. All the Washington employees wasn't bad enough. But when you start shortchanging us on $50,000, yeah. I mean, really, how much money are we talking about? Really, not Washington. Does Washington ever sell out anymore?
I mean, they do, but I mean, for the owners, you're talking about like to them pennies, right? It's just not a ton of money, but it's the concept. I just think the combination of everything that's gone on in Washington over the last few years is going to So let's have him be gone. I don't see any way. I don't see any way he's back next year.
I feel so bad for Commanders fans. I do. And you know what? I'm not going to watch their games if I can avoid it. I'll rewatch them on Game Pass. I'm not supporting that ownership group. It's got nothing to do with Washington. There's no other team in sports, my man, not a single one that I can think of that's fallen farther from grace from what they once were as a franchise when Joe Gibbs was coaching and Jack Cancoat was the owner, just competitively, right? But we're actually going to get to Washington. I'm curious what you're going to say Washington's best offseason acquisition is, because I don't think you're a big Carson Wentz guy. So this ought to be I'm looking forward to when we get there. Now, looking at the rundown, if you're following along on Brinks TV, it's done by division here. So it looks like we're starting with the AFC West. Any reason for that? You just wanted to talk Chiefs football?
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about the most fun division in the NFL. So these are my favorite acquisitions, right? Some of them are the biggest names that the team signed or traded for. Some are just guys that I like the fit. So let's start with the Chiefs. For me, it's Justin Reed. I thought Tyron Matthew slipped a little bit last year, and I don't think people talked about it enough. They needed somebody else in there that could play multiple positions, that could be a deep center fielder, that could play in the box. I think Reed's a good player that just needed to get out of that Houston situation. I think he's going to be really good for Kansas City this year.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. Now, Tyron Matthew was obviously a leader on that team, but look, this is the economics of the NFL, and this is one of those kind of moves. It's not sexy. It's very much isn't this the consummate mid-tier kind of acquisition that helps teams win games or helps teams stay afloat to where they've been. Right. So Kansas City may not win more, but as long as they don't drop off, and this is a much tougher division. Speaking of, let's go to your next team, the Broncos.
Yeah, it has to be Russell Wilson, right? They just finally get a quarterback that can to allow them to compete in the AFC. We'll see if he's closer to a top 5 quarterback than a top 10 quarterback. But it's a move that they had to make, and I think Russell's going to fit in well there.
Yeah, I mean, this is, the only other real speculation with the Broncos has been Randy Gregory's contract, and then whether or not they were going to bring back Melvin Gordon.
Which I still think they will. It's just, it might not be till after the draft.
Right. I understand why you didn't want to talk about Randy Gregory, probably for the same reason you want to talk about Daniel Snyder, so I won't make you. Let's go to the Las Vegas Raiders.
It's Devontae Adams. The biggest need for the Raiders going into the season was a number 1 receiver, and they get maybe the best receiver in the league. I still find it fascinating that the Packers offered Adams the same exact contract, and he said, "No, I want to go play with Derek Carr instead of Aaron Rodgers." I think this makes him a legitimate threat in the AFC now.
If this were like a top 10 or even a top 5 list, you could have 2 Raiders moves, because I absolutely loved them getting Chandler Jones so much. And the only way he gets beat on this is because it's Devontae Adams, but I love that move. Okay, and then your Los Angeles Chargers.
I really struggle with this one because I like the Khalil Mack trade so much, but JC Jackson, right? Their cornerback situation was atrocious last year. And now they've got a number 1 corner that can cover somebody like Devontae Adams, or at least tried to slow him down. Jackson, combined with Asante Samuel Jr., with Derwin James and Nasir Adderley in the secondary, it's making some a pretty good defense there in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to talk about a team that made the most noise, but not for necessarily not great reasons, like Jacksonville, this would be my nominee, because the first thing they did was they re-signed Mike Williams to a huge deal before any of this other stuff went down. Maybe overpaid him, maybe that's up to debate. And then they get Khalil Mack in a trade, then they get JC Jackson. It's been a big offseason. They're clearly going for it now. In the AFC South, we thought Tennessee was going to be going for a Super Bowl championship, and Derrick Henry came back, and everything kind of came crashing down against the upstart Bengals in the divisional round. What did Tennessee do in the offseason that makes you think they can get back?
I kind of like the addition of Austin Hooper. Now, I know that's not a big name tight end.
That's a championship move right there.
Well, I'm teasing. I know. But that's the kind of player they were missing in the playoffs last year, right? Like on 3rd and 4, can you find somebody that can get open for 6 yards in the middle of the field? They didn't have that, right? They didn't have anybody that could take the pressure off of AJ Brown and Julio Jones, who's gone. But I think Hooper just gives them a baseline starting caliber tight end. And I think that's important for that team.
Wow. So our podcast just got followed by Ferkser.
Anthony Ferkser. Poor Anthony Ferkser.
Yeah.
This thing, Hooper's such a better player, though. That's what I like about it. He's just a much better player than Anthony Ferkser or Jeff Swaim or whoever they were playing out there at tight end last year.
Yeah. There was a movie, I think it was called Looper, not Hooper. It was either Hooper or Looper. And wasn't it a Burt Reynolds vehicle? If I'm not mistaken.
No, there was one with, was it Joseph Gordon-Levitt was in it? I don't know.
Oh, if that was Looper, then maybe Hooper was Burt Reynolds. I don't know. Okay. Somebody can advise me on that. Let's go to Jacksonville. I mentioned them already. They spent a ton of money. A lot of people thought they overpaid for several guys. What was the move that you actually liked?
Brandon Sheriff, a Pro Bowl guard. Now, they might have overpaid him a little bit, but I'm okay with that because you're building up the offensive line. You're protecting Trevor Lawrence. He has some problems staying healthy, but when he's on and healthy, he's a really quality offensive lineman. I like that move by Jacksonville.
I think guard is an underrated position in the NFL. It doesn't have the same significance as it did in the old school NFL when there were a lot of pulling plays like sweeps and things like that. Now it's a lot of stretch runs and stuff like that. It's a little different from what you need from your guard. That said, the guard also protects your quarterback from having pressure in their face, right? And when you have a young quarterback, that's really the hardest thing to deal with. And so let's also not forget that Jacksonville picked a running back really high last year and never got his services. I mean, if you are going to run the ball, you need good guard play. Travis Etienne, I don't know if he's what his status is right now. Be interesting to see what he can give them this year. But I think this acquisition helps in that area big time, man. So I'm with you on that one for sure. And I don't think that they overpaid. Let's go to Indianapolis. They made quite a huge investment at quarterback. Was that where you went, or did you go somewhere else with this?
No, it's Matt Ryan. They got an adult in the quarterback room. I'm going to keep saying that over and over this offseason. But I don't think Matt Ryan is as washed up as many people think. I think he was in a really bad situation with Atlanta the last couple of years. The offensive line was falling apart. The weapons were never really as good as they looked on paper. I think with a strong run game in Indianapolis, with I think what's going to be a pretty good defense, I think he could have a nice couple of years. So I love this trade for the Colts.
I wish I could get an adult on this podcast. You know,
me too. Hey, trust me. Every day.
we should probably talk about Daniel Snyder. I'm not talking about it. I just want to talk acquisitions and talk golf and keep it rosy over here.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Yeah. Let's go to Houston Texans. What? Did you really find anything?
No, Houston did not do a lot in free agency. They really, it really feels like they're trying to save their cap space, but AJ Khan is a quality guard that they signed this offseason. Is he spectacular? No. But I think he helps at least a little bit. I think he's an upgrade over what they had last year. I still like their tackles quite a bit, and Laramie Tunsil and Titus Howard. So I think Khan at least gives him some solid guard play.
Can you say Laramie Tunsil as Arnold Schwarzenegger?
No.
Every time I heard his name, I don't know if I was on set and somebody did it. And now I cannot hear Laramie Tunsil without like Arnold saying it in Kindergarten Cop or something. Yeah. Okay. So let's go to our next division. So that was AFC West. That was the AFC North. Thank you, Courtney. There's the AFC North teams right there. We start with your favorite team of all time, the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think I know which move this is.
Yeah, it's James Daniels. It's the guard that they got from the Bears, 24 years old. They paid him a lot of money, and I think it makes a ton of sense. I think he's already the best offensive lineman on that team. The interior of their offensive line was so bad last year. If you're a rebuilding team like Pittsburgh, this is how you quickly, restart your team and get your trenches better. So I love the Daniels signing.
Got him from Chicago, correct?
Yes.
James Daniels.
Yep.
Yeah. So this is not what I was expecting you to say, Mr. Trubisky, but then I remembered, you were you were privately celebrating that Pittsburgh's line was going to be awful once again. And then they signed him and you're like, okay, they actually made a move.
Yeah.
They need to do more in the draft though, man. I don't think they're done with that unit.
Yeah, I think they should use their first pick on an offensive lineman, but it doesn't sound like we're trending in that direction. It looks like they're going to be hunting for a quarterback.
You never know. You never know how things will fall, especially with trades. Okay, so Cleveland Browns. Oh boy, if you didn't want to talk about Daniel Snyder, yeah. So where are we going with this?
Yeah, Deshaun Watson, because in the AFC, you need an elite quarterback to compete, and Watson gives you a chance. And you moved on. You're going to move on from Baker Mayfield. There's a chance that you might have a top 2 or 3 quarterback in the division. Did it cost you a lot? Did it cost you your reputation around the league? Maybe, but I think you got better.
Sounds great. Let's go to Cincinnati. I'm pulling what you pulled on me. So Cincinnati Bengals trying to get back to the Super Bowl, and it's going to be a tougher road. I'm going to guess that you went non-sexy here and you did the same thing as you did with Pittsburgh. Am I right?
I went offensive line, Lyle Collins.
Yeah.
I thought Lyle Collins was really good in the playoff game against Nick Bosa. I think he's going to be rejuvenated in Cincinnati, playing with another LSU teammate in Joe Burrow. He's exactly what they missed last year, a dominating right tackle who can open up holes in the run game, who also has a little bit of a mean streak to him that's going to keep his quarterback upright. Perfect signing for Cincinnati. Perfect.
Okay, I can't disagree. That's not the only thing they did on their offensive line. They really shored that up. They signed 3 different guys, a former Patriot, a former Buck, a former Cowboy. So, hey, if we can't draft well there, then guess what? We'll go to the marketplace and get some guys, and we'll focus our draft picks elsewhere. I see no problem with that. Why keep pouring good money after bad, right? Last team in the division, the Baltimore Ravens. What did you think they need to do? What was your favorite acquisition?
Yeah, I actually had 2. Morgan Moses, the right tackle that they signed, was with Washington, played with the Jets last year. I thought he was really good for New York. They bring him in on a 3-year deal, instantly makes them better at right tackle. But their big move, Marcus Williams, a Pro Bowl safety. He's only 25 years old, maybe the best pure free safety in the league right now. For a team that blitzes as much as Baltimore does, you need somebody in the back end that can kind of just be the bigger racer. And I think that's what Williams does. I love this signing by Baltimore.
You're not ready for the big move. You're not ready for the big move. What movie is that? What's the big move? I played Time of Your Life from Dirty Dancing, and it works every time. Come on.
So
I thought for sure you could get this.
Elliot and I had a long conversation about Dirty Dancing the other night. I watched it with my mom and my wife. And so I had told Elliot, we talked about it for a good 15, 20 minutes. So if you ever wonder what Elliot and I talk about on the phone, it's Dirty Dancing.
Yeah, but the line I'm giving you is not from Dirty Dancing. It's from Crazy Stupid Love.
I'm just saying, though. Yeah. We talked about Dirty Dancing this weekend.
You've got to get your romantic.
Sorry. Yeah. My rom-coms. My rom-coms are struggling. Right
I wouldn't call Dirty Dancing a rom-com. It's actually a period piece. Would you believe that? It's a period piece. It was, it takes place in the 50s, even though it was done in 87. Okay, so not that I know a lot about the movie. The one thing I notice here with obviously the acquisition at quarterback in Cleveland and in Pittsburgh, and Lamar Jackson coming back, and then you already have Joe Burrow. Where are the big free agent pass rusher signings? The big ones. I know the Ravens tried. They tried and didn't work out trying to get, was it Zadarius Smith, right? That they were this close to getting. It looked like
they had a deal in place. Yep.
Yeah. But that's the one glaring thing I noticed about the AFC North. I think obviously the Browns are maybe the best off in that area. But yeah. Okay. Just a thought.
Well, we still have Jadeveon Clowney as a free agent. Justin Houston is still a free agent. Melvin Ingram is still out there. Jason Pierre-Paul. My guess is a couple of those guys are going to catch on to contending teams like Baltimore and Cleveland over the next few weeks.
You think Baltimore brings in Houston?
They probably should. I thought he was pretty good for them last year.
Yeah. We'll see what happens there. Okay. The New York Jets kick off the AFC East. They actually had a lot of work to be done. And I think they made a couple of good moves. I'm curious what you think.
Yeah, the Laken Tomlinson one is just fantastic, right?
That's what I was thinking.
You get a Pro Bowl guard. You can move Elijah Vera Tucker, who you drafted in the first round last year, move him to the right side. Now you can really run the ball with Mekhi Becton and Laken Tomlinson. We'll see what they do at right tackle. I'm still a little bit up in the air about George Fant, but this is a massive improvement on their offensive line.
You ever get your bangs in your eyes, Marcus, and you just can't get them out?
Yeah, all the time, as you can see with my bangs, all the time.
Yeah, I think I finally got it. I said, if you wonder what I'm doing over here. Okay, the New England Patriots, by the way, I don't know if you heard me, but I totally agree with Laken Tomlinson. I thought that's a big loss for the 49ers. Good player. I think the Jets made a good move. It's those kind of quality moves. On the offensive line, we don't really pay a lot of attention to what we do on this podcast, but then they pay dividends down the road. The Jets will be better. Okay, so New England actually lost some from the offensive line. They lost Karras. They lost Shaq Mason. What did you like about? They lost J.C. Jackson. So I'm curious what you feel was good here.
I really like the signing of Jibril Peppers, who played with the Giants the last couple seasons. Now he got hurt at the middle part of the season, but he was playing really well. And if you remember Jibril Peppers kind of coming out of college, he was this do everything guy, right? Played offense for Michigan, was a kick returner, punt returner, played linebacker, played safety. I just have a sneaky feeling that in Bill Belichick's defense, he might be playing a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage as a linebacker, maybe even as a slot defender, using him in the return game. Don't be surprised if this is somebody who Bill Belichick kind of turns his career around.
I like that a lot, actually. I'm curious to how strong the Patriots are going to be because they had a tough offseason.
Yeah.
And, obviously Buffalo is the ringleader in that division, but you've got Miami. And I don't think the Jets are going to be a pushover anymore. Of course, a lot depends on quarterback there. A lot depends on quarterback with Miami. Their offseason was in the news a lot. What was the acquisition that you liked there?
I mean, we could talk about Tyreek Hill and how big of an impact that has, but I think Terron Armstead, getting him the best left tackle in free agency, might have been the most impressive move of the offseason because you and I watched that Miami team all last year, and it was shocking that they were able to win games in spite of their offensive line. Like that,
they couldn't compete.
And that offensive line was so bad. And when we got to the end of the season, and they played a game against the Titans, you just knew they weren't going to be able to compete because of how bad that was. Armstead gives them a legitimate Pro Bowl left tackle. They've got Connor Williams at left guard. Their offensive line still isn't good, but it's significantly better than it was last year.
Well, that should make a difference, hopefully, in their quarterback play. They also didn't get anything out of the running game. I told you before, I did like the Chase Edmonds signing by this team with what they're going to do. That one kind of went under the radar, didn't cost them a lot of money. We'll see how that works out for them. Obviously, the team everyone's trying to knock off here in this division of the Buffalo Bills. So what did the Bills do that you like?
Yeah, they went out and got Von Miller. I mean, if they had Von Miller last year, they probably win the Super Bowl, but they just couldn't get anybody to rush the passer consistently in big games. I still think Von Miller is really good, and you put him on that defense that is so well coached and that has talent all over the place. I think Von can be a double-digit sack guy for Buffalo next year.
Yeah, how about a defense that's getting Tre'Davious White back? They didn't have him for a good portion of the season. So Buffalo, obviously a contender again. Let's go over to the other conference. Let's look at the NFC. I assume we're starting with the NFC East. Okay. So at the top here, you have a team that, granted, you don't follow too much. I could probably help you a little bit with this on who this player should be. But the Dallas Cowboys, what was the move that you liked the most? And I can already tell you it's wrong.
They signed 2 players this offseason. That's it. So if you give 1 of 2 options, it's either Dante Fowler or James Washington. I'm going Fowler. I just trust Dan Quinn here. I think he's going to be able to get Fowler to play some pretty good football. Is he going to replace Randy Gregory? No. But could he be a 5 or 6 sack guy and be a nice rotational end? Sure. Why not?
If you had to compare the Cowboys offseason and its performance to a rom-com, which one would it be?
40-year-old virgin. I mean, just everything bad just keeps happening to this poor guy.
Yeah, the problem is that's just such a quality movie compared to
something about Mary.
I was, I thought you would say like Made in Manhattan or something, because that wasn't very good, I don't think. Although I don't know if that was a rom-com.
I was just thinking of like things that just the bad things just keep happening to the good guy, right? So,
well, I mean, maybe we should. The way the stress of their terrible offseason keeps stressing you guys all out, I think 13 going on 30 is probably the most appropriate thing we can come up with. All right, let's go with the New York Giants here. They voted confidence to their quarterback. Did they help out Danny Dimes in the offseason in a way that you like?
Yeah, Mark Kuklinski, the guard coming over from the Colts. Is he spectacular? No, but he's a solid player. And the interior offensive line was so bad for the Giants last year. At least this gives them somebody stable in the middle of the offensive line. And I think they got him at a pretty good price too.
Are you surprised the Colts didn't bring him back?
A little bit. I mean, why have a bigger hole that you have to fill? You already had the left tackle hole with Eric Fisher leaving. Why just let him leave at like $6 million a year? I don't get it.
Sometimes I wonder on deals like that, the team knows the player. We've talked about that. But sometimes I think a team thinks that the market might be a little bit higher than they want to spend anyway, and they kind of rule it out. And then the player, and I'm speculating here, and then the player gets a little turned off by the fact that he doesn't feel like the team, his agent calls him and says, yeah, I haven't heard from the Colts, or I'm not saying that's what happened here. I just wonder how often something like that happens, because you always wonder when a team like the Giants is able to get a pretty good starting player for what you consider a bargain. Why didn't the original team just go ahead and spend that smart money too? Anyway, just a little speculation.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know. I don't know why he's not back with the Colts. I really wonder.
I think we should do a football podcast called Football Theory. So that's what I think. All right. Philadelphia Eagles. That's next up on the list. They made a huge trade. Is your favorite acquisition of theirs the trade they made with the Saints?
I do like that one quite a bit. But actually, it's Hassan Reddick, right? They needed somebody else that could rush the passer. He's a little small to play on the edge, but with the defensive tackles they have and with the other defensive ends they have, I really like this fit. Their front seven should be really good next year. And Reddick's been a proven double-digit sack guy for the last 2 years. I think this is a great signing by Philadelphia.
I was a little surprised, and they may have, but they didn't go after Gregory. Why not weaken a division opponent? Before we do, he was going to sign with the Broncos. Get yourself a pass rusher from the team that you're trying to knock off in the division. I just a little thought there. Let's go to the Washington Commanders. This is the one I'm most curious about, because I know how you feel about Carson Wentz. We didn't cover this at the top, but Mr. Irsay had a few things to say that were not exactly glowing of Carson Wentz. I don't know if you guys saw that. You should look up his quotes on how he felt the organization just needed to move on. And they didn't move on from anyone else. I guess Glowinski, but so what is Washington's best acquisition?
Not Carson Wentz. It's Andrew Norwell for me. They lost Brandon Sheriff, as we talked about at the top. So they needed to rebound. And I think Norwell is a nice fallback option. He's a little bit older. I believe he's 30 now. I still thought he was pretty decent last year. They got him at a relatively good price. So as long as you can keep the interior offensive line competent, I'm good with this.
Norwell came in with Carolina, didn't he?
Yes. Yep.
Into the league. Yeah. But yeah, he's been around a bit now. He's a veteran, but I with you, sometimes you have to do that. You don't intend on losing someone and you have to scramble. And we talked at the top of this about Kansas City going in, getting Justin Reed. You got to fill a hole. You go and you do it. Let's go to the NFC North. The Chicago Bears have a lot of holes. That's called a segue in the biz. Marcus.
This one's tough. I mean, Chicago really didn't do anything this offseason because of their cap situation. They lost Khalil Mack, Akeem Hicks, Eddie Goldman. They really didn't sign anybody. They also lost James Daniels, who we talked about already. So I went with Justin Jones, who is a rotational defensive tackle. I mean, he's probably not a starter, but that's about the only notable move they made.
I got one for you, Matt Eberflus. There's your best acquisition for the Chicago Bears. Former Colts defensive coordinator. I told you, I have a feeling he's going to do a good job there. We'll find out. Dan Campbell didn't have the record last year, but a lot of people think he did a great job. That was another segue, Marcus, if you want to take some notes here. Best acquisition for Detroit.
DJ Chark. I thought they lacked speed at receiver last year. I really liked Amon-Ra St. Brown in the middle of at the slot position. They have TJ Hawkinson. I really liked DeAndre Swift, but they just didn't have anybody that could stretch the field. And I think Chark was in a bad situation over the last couple of years with Jacksonville. He got hurt early in the season, and they signed him on a 1-year flyer deal. It wouldn't shock me at all if he has 1,000 yards or 6 and 7 touchdowns this year, because I think he's a pretty decent player.
Which receiver was it? Was it Raymond that had a big game against the Rams?
Khalif
Kind of
Raymond.
out of nowhere. Yeah, Khalif Raymond. That's what I thought. Yeah,
Yep.
this is definitely a spot that they needed some help. A lot of upside still for Chark. Kind of an unusual journey in Jacksonville for him. I don't mind this move. I'm really curious what the Lions are going to do this year. There's so much speculation about Jared Goff just not being good enough. When we did our mock draft with you and Chad had them taking Malik Willis, right? Wasn't it second overall? Are the Lions going to hit quarterback right away? Are they going to look? They can afford to hit this group again in the draft, I think. So, and I'm talking about high pick. I don't mean, on day 3. So we'll see what happens there. Green Bay Packers are the team, obviously Detroit's aiming for. There's a big gap between those teams right now. Maybe it closed a little bit with Davante Adams leaving. What did you like in terms of additions?
Yeah, they didn't have a lot of additions because they were so up against the cap. They lost they lost Darius Smith. They lost Davante Adams. But I did like the signing of Jaron Reed, who was with Kansas City last year, spent most of his career with Seattle. I think him and Kenny Clark in the middle of that defense is a really good combo. I think Reed can still hold up against the run. I like the value there for Green Bay and Jaron Reed.
I'm not saying this is the same, but how many people really got excited about them signing an off-the-ball linebacker when they signed Devondre Campbell?
Exactly.
And of all the moves that have worked out in recent vintage, I would say that's one of the best free agent signings of the last couple of years. Jalen Smith acquisition really worked out at the end of last year.
A strong 17 snaps he gave him.
Why did I feed you? That's like me throwing
teed it up. I love it. It's so
throwing
good.
up a hockey league for you. That's what we're going to call it. Teeing up a hockey league for you. Okay. Minnesota Vikings. They made a lot of moves. New coach. People are still unsure though about what's the plan there in Minnesota. No one seems to have faith in Kirk Cousins. Did they help out Kirk Cousins, or do you like something they did on the other side of the ball?
Yeah, I like the addition of Zadarius Smith on defense. The other defensive end spot has been such a problem for the Vikings, opposite of Danielle Hunter. Hunter's supposed to be healthy going into this year, and
both spots have been a problem.
Yeah, they've just had so many injuries, but assuming those guys can stay healthy, that's one of the better, pass rush duos in the league. Smith is an awesome run defender too. Hunter is so athletic off the edge. If they can keep those guys on the field, I think that defense, especially now that they have Jordan Hicks, who they signed from the Cardinals, the front seven should be pretty good.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. It was a little bit of a surprise when Baltimore wasn't able to get the deal done. That's what we talked about with the AFC North. I love the signing for Minnesota. It clearly fills a need for them. And, if they can get great play from Kirk Cousins and get great pass rush play, there's no reason Minnesota can't compete for the NFC North, because Green Bay should not be stronger than they were last year. Now, they may be as strong. Davante Adams, though, is a huge loss. This is the time to make your move in that division. Let's go over to the NFC South next. And we got the Atlanta Falcons up. We know about the loss. I know a signing I really liked with this team. I'm wondering if you're thinking the same thing I am.
I like the Mariota signing as a bridge, but I actually liked another signing better. I love Casey Hayward. He was incredible last year for the Raiders. He was their number one corner and did not give up a lot. And now you put him in Atlanta, where he's the number 2 corner, opposite of AJ Terrell, who had, I think, an all-pro year last year. And suddenly your secondary is pretty good. And there's been some rumors about them maybe at pick number 8, drafting a corner and, kind of developing him with Terrell and Hayward. I just think Hayward on this defense makes a ton of sense.
I like that move too. He is Terrence Newman 2.0, man. That guy's going to play till he's 52 years old. Terrence Newman, not the greatest corner of all time or anything, but played at a really good level for 16 years in the league. And Casey Hayward seems like that kind of guy. I did like the Mariota signing. I wonder about picking at 8. Why not trade down and get as many players as you can with the cap space that you're going to have next year? Obviously, these players won't be making a lot of money that they draft this year, but things will get better for Atlanta. They're going to have cap relief in 2023, huge savings. And then on top of that, if you can trade the 8th pick and get, 3 or 4 picks, why not? Get as many talented college athletes as you can on that team, because you're not going to be competing for the division this year anyway. Another team that's probably not going to be competing in the division either would be the Carolina Panthers. What did you like there?
They didn't make a ton of moves either in the offseason, but I did like the addition of Austin Corbett, who really turned his career around at guard for the Rams. Former second-round pick from the Browns, who they traded away pretty quickly. I thought Corbett was pretty good last year for Los Angeles. You bring him in, you put him at the right guard spot, and we'll see. I think he's an upgrade over the litany of names they played at that spot last year. So we'll see how Corbett plays in that offense.
The litany. I mean, I don't know that litany's been used in any of our episodes yet. I'll do a quick search, except I won't. By the way, I have to tell you, I can't wait for your tweet after the show promoting the podcast. I picked the best guard signings for all 32 teams.
That's a lot of guard. I mean, I just love teams that invested in their offensive line. So
I'm with
a little biased.
Hey, in 100 years, this will be the 103rd season of the NFL coming up. And in 102 seasons previously, a lot of things have changed. One thing that hasn't, you lose on the offensive line more often than not. You lose a football game in any era. That's just the way it is. New Orleans Saints. So not a ton of moves here in terms of additions. What did you like there?
So they lost Marcus Williams in free agency to Baltimore, who we talked about. So they needed to pivot and sign somebody else. And they brought in Marcus May from the Jets, who I thought was pretty good the last couple of years. I really thought he was playing well in 2021 before he got hurt, but they got him at a fraction of the price that Marcus Williams went for in free agency. And I'm not sure there's that big of a difference in the two players here. So kudos to the Saints for grabbing a really good veteran safety.
Yeah, I'm with you on this. Maybe the Saints will be a little bit more conservative minded under their new head coach. Obviously, Sean Payton gone, but I see this team playing defense, running the ball more. I'm not saying that Jameis Winston can't play, but I don't think this needs to be Jameis Winston throwing for 5,000 yards and airing it out. I don't think that's the recipe. So getting a safety to replace the high price one they just lost is a good, smart move. Yep. What they needed to do to stay competitive. I think they're a playoff team this year. Tampa Bay Bucks, they're the leader of the division for sure. What did you like there? I bet you I can guess.
Yeah, guard. So they lost Ali Marpet due to a retirement. Alex Kappa signed a massive deal with Cincinnati. So the guard market wasn't great. So what do they go out and do? They trade a 5th-round pick for Shaq Mason, a Pro Bowl guard who Tom Brady knows well. And they might have upgraded at that right guard spot. Like Shaq Mason is so good at opening up holes in the run game. I love this addition by them.
Can we start calling this the Guard Rankings podcast? Sure. This would be really great. I mean, maybe you could you, so with your running backs don't matter website, could you do guardsmatter.com? I'm sure you get a lot of clicks, man.
We got one more coming up, so don't worry. There's one more guard we're going to talk about.
Dude, just put on YouTube videos of doing music reviews and you'll get plenty of clicks. That's the new thing now. That's what all the kids are doing, bro. All the kids. All right. Arizona Cardinals really ended their season with a whimper. I know Cardinals don't whimper before somebody tweets me that, but this was an interesting offseason because so much of it was dedicated to whether or not Kyler Murray was populating his Instagram with Cardinals logos and things. How about real football moves? What did you see here?
Yeah, they only made a few, and none of them are splashy at all. So we're going with Will Hernandez, a guard from the Giants who very up and down during his career, but maybe a change in scenery. Yeah, maybe a change in scenery. A really good run blocker, and I think the Cardinals need to be able to run the ball better. That's the last time we're going to talk about a guard today, I promise.
That's all right. I actually, to be honest, I appreciate it because I don't think there's any podcasts out there that are talking about guard play very much. I can only think of one, and that's because the host is an offensive lineman himself, and I like Ross Tucker. But like I said, I mean, you lose. Look, if your guards and your center do not play well at all, like they have a terrible game, I think in the NFL, you lose 70% of the time.
100% agree. 100%.
So, and I don't care who your quarterback is. So I'm with you on there. Kyler Murray does have great mobility and stuff, but it's not enough to have terrible play at that part of your line. Okay. Los Angeles Rams, they actually, speaking of offensive line, Andrew Whitworth retired. So they had a need there potentially, but what did they do in the offseason that you liked a lot? And there's only one answer here, and it better be right.
Yeah, I'm going to let you talk about it. Bobby Wagner, go ahead.
I know yours is Allen Robinson, so go ahead. I know.
No, it's Bobby Wagner. I want to hear your thoughts, though. Yes.
Well, they've got a young off-the-ball linebacker that they like already, but I think adding a veteran to not only help there with development, but also to win now. Your window is now. Strike while the iron is hot. Forget the money down the road. Yeah, you're going to have some dead cap money and those kinds of issues that we see with Matt Ryan in Atlanta, which led to him going to Indianapolis. That happens. But the difference there is Atlanta was not able to get a Super Bowl with Matt Ryan. The Rams have already got one. Right now, they're playing with house money. Go for it. And to me, the cherry on the top of this deal is that Bobby Wagner knows that division so well. You telling me when he lines up there, he knows Kyle Shanahan's offense. He knows the formations. He knows what's coming. And on top of the cherry, not an olive, is how motivated is he? Did you see his tweet when they let him go?
Yeah.
Well, it was very short. It wasn't like Russell Wilson short. If Bobby Wagner was Russell Wilson, do you know what his tweet would have been? Betrayed.
Comeback
season. One word. Yeah. Retribution. Right? No, but yeah. So Bobby Wagner, if you guys didn't see this, sent a tweet out. This was right after he signed it. After 10 years, I didn't even hear it from them. Like, now, I imagine there was probably some yelling in that office, like, didn't you call him?
Yeah.
But anyway, stand-up player, I think already has Hall of Fame credentials. You know, I love the signing. But I love the Allen Robinson signing as well for this team. So good stuff there. Okay, San Francisco, I think still the Rams' biggest threat in the division. You may disagree. You're a big Cardinals honk. What did the 49ers do? 49ers had some losses.
Yeah. So they overpaid Charvarius Ward. But that's what you have to do in free agency, right? You're typically paying good players great money. But Elliot, if they had Charvarius Ward on their team last year, do they win the Super Bowl? Because I kind of think they do. Like the quarterback situation for them was so bad all season long. And I'm shocked that they got as far as they did, considering how bad they were. So at least they get somebody on the outside that's reliable, pretty consistent, has good ball skills. I like this move.
This is another thing for our football theory podcast right here. So normally, two things normally. First of all, when we say a team's going for it now, we normally point to someone like the Rams, who's getting some high price veteran talent to try it winning now. The other thing is normally, I don't think you would advise not paying Tomlinson, a player like that, to get a player like Ward. Like, why not just keep that money and re-sign your own guy that played well for you? But in this case, the 49ers are thinking, we can mitigate this on the offensive line. We cannot mitigate in the secondary. We
got killed by Cooper Kupp and Odell Beckham, right?
Yes. And so this is a different way of, it's kind of like in the draft. Do you pick for talent? Do you pick for need? If you're going for a championship that year and you think there is a rookie in the draft that can play for you right now, even if you're taking him 10 or 12 picks higher than he should go, you take him if you're trying to win right now. And that's what the 49ers did with this move. I like it a lot. Let's go to Seattle.
Uchenna Nwosu, a former edge rusher for the Chargers, who I thought made some big plays for them last year. I remember the game against Kansas City on Thursday night. He had an incredible interception on a tip ball. I don't think he's a Pro Bowl player or anything like that, but just a solid player, and didn't love a lot of the moves Seattle made this offseason, but getting a productive pass rusher at a pretty decent price is a good move.
Yeah, I mean, this one was probably painful for you because I don't know how many times this year you said, or the last couple of weeks, you're like, I have no idea what Seattle's doing.
No idea.
I have no idea what Seattle's doing. And I've been telling you, I have no idea what Carolina's doing. So I'm with you on that. Hey, that's all 32 teams, isn't it?
It is. Of those moves, Elliot, which one was your favorite?
Ooh, cookies and cream.
Is it Adams to the Raiders?
I like the excitement of it. I'll be honest, the one that I really loved a lot, but it's kind of a bias thing. I love Chandler Jones going to the Raiders. I loved it because
which didn't even make my list. Didn't even make my list, and that might be your number one.
Yeah, but I loved it for the fact that I like him as a player, and I love the idea of Max Crosby getting paid and then having that veteran. What if Chandler Jones does some Jedi stuff with Max Crosby to open up even more of his potential and moves? Oh my gosh, man. Remember Greg Ellis with DeMarcus Ware? I think Greg Ellis was a huge influence on DeMarcus Ware.
Yeah.
You know,
I agree. I'll give you one more that I didn't list.
Yeah.
I really like the Yannick Ngakoue trade for the Colts. You get that guy in a dome with, DeForest Buckner and Kwity Paye, who they drafted last year. You just get him up the field, rushing the passer. I thought he was really good last year. And now you repair him with Gus Bradley, who was his defensive coordinator last year. And suddenly I think the Colts have a pretty good pass rush.
No, I'm with you. And it's something they needed to do. And look, that organization, I think they're just embarrassed. I do. Yeah. I think they're still, that taste is still so bitter about Jacksonville. And you might say, well, I mean, okay, but they take 7 teams in the playoffs. So what? So they missed the playoffs. I think the Colts think that they could have competed for the Super Bowl. All they needed to do was get in the tournament to do it. I think that's the mindset that they had. And if you saw some of their games this year when they played well, you got to kind of agree with that if that's what the thinking is. Yeah, I'm with you on this. I really like a lot of the moves that you pointed out here and there. I checkered a couple of moves that I like that you didn't mention, but it doesn't mean I didn't that I thought that they were better than the ones you pointed out. That said, we've gone over everything. I've given you my curmudgeon-y Carl takes. As always, you have the last word.
I think a lot of people believe that free agency is won and lost in the first couple of days, right? And all these moves that we talked about, almost all these guys got signed before even the league year opened. But the championship teams win now in free agency, right? They're grabbing guys that are the 3rd and 4th receiver on their team, the 6th and 7th offensive lineman, guys that are just really solid depth players. And those are the guys that end up helping you win Super Bowls, right? This is where the Rams have been excellent over the last couple of years, just filling in gaps. I'm curious to see what some of these, Super Bowl teams or the Super Bowl windows do over the next couple of weeks, because this is where the good teams win.
Yeah. And to your point, there's still some good veteran players out there. Maybe not guys that are going to give you 50 snaps, but guys that have been there before, that if you still have a little bit of money left over and you think, I'd like to add 20 pass rush snaps, right? And some more red zone snaps, you can go out and get that guy if you've got enough money left over. Of course, you got to see how the draft plays out before you do that sometimes.
I'll give you an example like last year for Dallas. The Cowboys signed Jaron Kearse, a safety that nobody thought anything of, right? But they found a role for him, and he was one of their top 5 or 6 defensive players. Now, is that a big household name or anything like that? No, but you just got somebody that played 1,000 snaps for you on defense and special teams for pennies in late April. Those are the type of moves that end up being the difference whether you win a Super Bowl or not.
Well, we mentioned Justin Houston on this podcast. Yeah. If you're a contender, you're like, look, Justin Houston's not the guy that's going to give us, what did he have, like 20 sacks, 22 sacks one year for Kansas City?
Yeah.
He's not that guy. But if Justin Houston gives you 5.5 sacks, 7 sacks.
Defensive end. Yep.
Yeah. You'll take that all day, not to mention some good veteran leadership or a guy that's been there before. So I'm with you on that as well. Okay, this is a really good list, man. I like it a lot. We should definitely send this out over the Twitterverse, because a lot of guards. People can't wait to hear about those guards. So always remember that olives overpower anything. So if you have any dish that you really love, do not add black olives. It's a really bad idea, especially on nachos. Yeah, it's the worst. You go to a sports. I told you I'd give you the last word, and now I'm doing it. But look, if you're at a sports bar, I want nachos without the black olives. Okay.
That's a good take. Good take.
Yeah. Well, that's why you're a great partner. We could really use a lot more maturity on this podcast.
An adult in this podcast is what we need, right?
Yeah. Courtney, please play the music, please. Do we just cue it up?
Leader,
I'm asking. I'm tired of me. Okay. Can we just start it, please? Okay. He's at Marcus_Mosher, the host of the Locked On Cowboys. He also covers the Raiders for USA Today. I am at Harrison NFL on Twitter. And we thank Courtney and Eric and Herbert over at Brinks TV. And we will see you guys. And also, big shout out to who left us a comment. I'm going to mention your name on our next podcast. I meant to do that. And you're going to get a free t-shirt from Marcus. So it was a beautiful comment on Apple Podcasts. We thank you so, so much. Take care.